detailed index of dates and events, glimpsed briefly by EW during an hour-long Zoom interview with the filmmaker and his producing partner/wife Deborah on Halloween, is a physical manifestation of his plans for Rebel Moon, Netflix's two-part sci-fi film epic that will launch an entire galaxy of spin-offs and tie-ins across various media. And that board only holds the history of a single planet in the Rebel Moon mythology. But for all his extensive planning, the one thing Snyder couldn't anticipate or rush was nature itself. The central conflict of Rebel Moon revolves around wheat, specifically the crop grown by hardy human settlers on the rocky planetoid Veldt in the first film, arriving this December 22nd. When an imperial spaceship from the authoritarian Motherworld, the planet chronicled on that whiteboard, lands on Veldt demanding that hard-earned harvest to feed their merciless army. The settlers set out searching for any Davids who might be able to help them topple Goliath. One farmer in particular, Gunnar, Michiel Huisman, finds former imperial footsoldier Kora, Sofia Boutella, dashing bounty hunter Hunnam, the swordswoman known as Nemesis, Doona Bae, the general-turned-gladiator Djimon Honsou, the regal animal wrangler Staz Nair, and revolutionary mythology Duffy. Thus begins a new space saga that's part Seven Samurai, part Star Wars, and pure Snyder. Every element of the wheat's life cycle, its sowing, its growing, and its eventual harvest, plays a part in Rebel Moon. So to make sure they'd be able to capture it at every stage, Snyder says his team planted 10 football fields worth of wheat in the Santa Clarita Valley, an uphill battle. Considering the arid climate of the Golden State is much more conducive to grapes and almonds than the typical byproduct of the Midwest. What's funny is that our people in charge of growing the wheat didn't want to disappoint us, Snyder says. But the wheat wasn't growing fast. We would have to scramble and figure out what else we could shoot. If only all 10 football fields would have grown as well and as fast as the wheat under Snyder's care. The director lovingly tended to a control group in his garage to project how well the other plants might be doing, but it quickly outpaced its peers. I should have been in charge of the wheat, Snyder sighs. As if the one thing Snyder was lacking on Rebel Moon was another job title. In addition to directing the two films, he co-wrote the screenplay, alongside his 300 collaborator Kurt Johnston and John Wick veteran Shay Hatton, based on a pitch he'd been brewing for years. Snyder also manned the cameras as his own cinematographer, a role he often filled in his old days as a commercial director but left behind during his past decade of helming DC superhero epics like 2016's Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and 2017's Justice League. I remember you saying that the bigger the movies got, the further you got from the camera, and it drove you crazy, Deborah reminds her husband, sitting next to him on the Zoom call. Now, the hard work has paid off. The wheat, in the sci-fi universe, did eventually grow to fruition, and the results made a clear impact on Rebel Moon's many actors, and hopefully its viewers as well. It saves us a lot of work when it's real because everything is there in front of you to react upon, says Boutella, who stars as Kora, a former Motherworld soldier who is now assembling a team of resistance fighters to protect Veldt from the imperial oppression she used to enforce. You can see it on camera, too. It does something to the eye. It looks different, especially with a bunch of CGI around. It better. Because Netflix is betting more than $160 million that the Snyders can create a Disney/Lucasfilm rival out of Rebel Moon as easily as they grew wheat in the desert. From Star Wars to Star Maker. The seed of Rebel Moon was first planted back when Snyder was a student at Pasadena's Art Center College of Design in the late 80s. Tasked with creating a one-line pitch, the future director settled on the Dirty Dozen in space. In other words, a ragtag team of warriors from different backgrounds assembled to fight for a common cause, but piloting spaceships and wielding laser guns instead of World War II bombers. Apparently, this idea killed in the room, and Snyder never forgot that. As he cut his teeth on commercials and achieved mainstream film success with his Dawn of the Dead remake and adaptations of seminal comics like 300, Snyder kept the idea in his back pocket. There was a brief period where it could have become a Star Wars project, though Deborah was never in favor of that. In any case, those conversations with producer Kathleen Kennedy took place before Disney's purchase of Lucasfilm, at which point, Snyder remembers, they were off and running on The Force Awakens, and that was the end of Rebel Moon as a Star Wars thing.